We're going to discuss the many different areas of consciousness that are actually different planes of experience. You can be lonely in the world, or you can be lonely for God. You can be an illumined person, as in all the writings of the East about condition of nirvana, where you don't want to be around people. You are in love with God. It's an enormous, it has nothing to do with being in love with someone. It sounds similar, is an attraction, but you're part of infinity, and you realize completely that the world is an illusion, that it is a hell space, no more, no less, no different. Today we're going to discuss the different areas that I have never seen discussed of these dimensions that you'll feel from time to time, and you'll embody them all within you 24 hours a day, every day. And people around you don't realize you can move from one to the other like this. It's very painful at times, but if someone's in need, you drop your connection to God in a direct sense, and you're there with them. You comply with their need. You're completely available. And you have many different skills that are inborn, and you develop over a lifetime of handling every different kind of problem in the world. And though, like in Zen, they call it, you might be illumined, but you live your day-to-day life. They call it chop wood, carry water. I would say moving with the rhythm of the earth. And you do that, you drop it, and there's the next circumstance you deal with or don't deal with. And 100% of the time, God, you're always available, or God is always there, and He can transfer any experience to any other dimension. But every experience you have through a lifetime is guided, directed in an unimaginably pure sense, where if you reach like my age, you've had thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of rotten in between great experiences, divine experiences, but they all gave you an education. You'll be educated every moment of every day, not because you're stupid, not because God doesn't think you're intelligent, but you gave your part up as a divine presence in heaven, literally, to be here. If you're spiritual. If not, we'll discuss that at a point, without reacting to it. There was another Zen quote from one of the Zen masters was questioning another Zen master as to why there was a river, rushing a little river, there were rapids, and the Zen master picked up a prostitute that wanted to go to the other side, and he carried her to the other side and put her down, and then a while later the other Zen student asked him why he picked up he said, was that, he questioned his morality to carry a prostitute, and the Zen master said, yes, I did pick her up, but I put her down at the other side of the stream. You are still carrying her. So when you're dealing with people that have injury, that have whatever, you never bring it up again. You never question. If they say something, always listen completely to them, be there with them. Even though you might be experiencing nirvana, you drop that for a moment, and it's like you pick up a kitten or a child or a dog, and you have to instantly be quiet and there for that. So I'm saying all these different dimensions will happen throughout the day, and you'll learn over a period of time not to react, not to be upset with the neighbor that all of a sudden got loud because you're working with a client or a friend in the house or outside in the garden, and you're in a very spiritual atmosphere. Same as when you're in a romantic atmosphere. You don't want people next door throwing things or whatever. So you'll learn many, many dimensions of experience. We started with the one of you can be lonely for God, you can be lonely for people, and it can drive you crazy, loneliness. But imagine being lonely for God. You're already illumined. And once you're there, you realize you can change the whole world, everything in it, forever, with great ease. Imagine that. That's part of one dimension of this, where you can see this world system and entire realms of world systems, and they're all of a spiritual nature. And you can let go of this one or that one or the other one. Like there's something called aerogels, where you in material science, where I think a farmer or a scientist wanted to try to understand Jello in the back 100 years ago, in the 1930s, and he discovered there's this in fibrous materials, and they let it go, and then it was very expensive to work with this, and then somewhere in the space program in the 90s, they needed something to capture to bring back from outer space, from an asteroid off at the end of the star system, or whatever, or the solar system, actual stardust that existed before this world existed. So they worked on this material that's an aerogel that's, if you saw it, you could never believe it. It looks like it's made of light, and it's an actual form. And so at the last moment, they would open up the side of the ship, of the spaceship, and allow in just the edges of space, and then somewhere in it they would capture stardust, literally. I'm saying how delicate and wonderful, and they couldn't find another use for this, and of course it's so expensive to make it. It's a silica gel, or it's called an aerogel, they call it, but it's, if you see it, it looks like actual light with no weight whatsoever. It's 99.8% air. And it's a structure that you'll find in Jello and gels. So they actually got it down to the actual structure. So what I'm saying, you have these different dimensions in you, and they picked up, and they had to send it out to all the computers in the country. They didn't have the computing power at that point to look for these microscopic, I mean literally like cosmic dust, and they eventually found the images of stardust that existed before this world was, and yet captured in space. So you'll have areas within you, like I say, pick up a puppy and it's a little upset, and if you're completely quiet inside, the puppy will be completely quiet. Your girlfriend, your mom, whatever, your brother-in-law, you just gently with someone in your heart, hug or not hug, doesn't matter, it's what you hug with your soul. What I'm saying, once you're developed spiritually, you'll have many, many dimensions of this. Early on, the world will try to trap you because it's something dark, with the relationships with men or women, with, like romantic relationships or money, and they'll be very rough. And then after your 20s and all, if you're a spiritual path, you're like, those things won't matter anymore. You'll realize that spiritual faith will always carry you forward. So you're not going to be upset, and you're going to see and know, oh, that's from the dark side, the devil. And you'll learn to not react to the most subtle interference in your heart and soul and the lives of others. So if someone's going to hurt someone, you can stop it, you can end it. It's quite wonderful. It's quite wonderful to be you as a spiritual presence in a woe-begotten, in a lost world. We're beyond the last edge of space. We're actual hell. But if you understand that spiritually, then you can be as the monk. Let go of everything. And you can transmit this feeling to others. It's called empowerment. When I was with my friends in Tibet, the monks, it was just, no one ever thought about it or thought it was a big deal, because the monks there sit quietly, no matter what you're doing, and the world disappears, and then you got to get back into the illusion, which is we're talking about again today, because we have to be on the battlefield to help our friends and loved ones, to do any healing, any protection, any instruction. Because every intelligent and spiritual person, like my buddy Carlos here, just showed up today, can do anything spiritually. You would see the person looks like, oh, he has star quality. No, it's spiritual. It's something very pure and electric and refined. And of course, Annette is a holy woman. She has this ability to quiet anyone in any circumstance, literally. And so animals and people love her, and are quiet around her. And so when she does have a bad day, you're not going to know it, because she's trained over a long period of time to not. Why let go of why give up your dignity because someone's going to put a ticket in your car and you're running it? Like, just pay the ticket, relax, and keep moving and get the day's work done. Chop wood, carry water. You move with the rhythm of the earth. But as a spiritual being, once you're empowered, and you will feel these, just from today, I know I'm a teacher. I'm saying this for all of us in the world that are spiritual. Everyone in this room has that gift. Greg's been teaching people for 60 years, and he's just a teacher. And everyone calls him professor. So people have to be mature about him, because he's mature and not going to bend. So the point being is we can do anything, we can do everything. We can end an entire world system, which to me is no big deal. Getting back to the first point, the loneliness of someone who has that intention, all the spiritual people in the world that I know, I can start mentioning names that are all over the world, but they're very beautiful people, and you don't know them. A few of them are very well known, but it's, for the most part, they won't be known or seen on any website or anything. They're just pure as a driven snow. There are people like that. I'm sure there are more puppies that are pure as a driven snow than there have ever been people that are as pure as a driven snow. Does that make sense? People question, oh, the dogs have souls or not. Oh my God, do you have a soul? Do you know what I mean? It's just, everything spiritual just is. And if you're quiet, you'll be like that aerogel that's made of light, and you can lift and you can secure, and it's so expensive to make that stuff, but they needed something to cover all the jolting and shocking of spaceships, and also they'll spend it, they'll make it actual suspension out of like you'd have in your car. They would use it in the corners of the joints and all. They had the aerogel. It's so expensive, but it has no weight. But if you look at it, it has structure, and they can use it to protect materials. Isn't that amazing? And I'm simply bringing those ideas into there, or gravitational field, what holds the universe in place. And as I'm saying this, I've extrapolated out to your spiritual experience, your own experience as you've lived, to sense these words and remember the times you felt all these things, like you have physical gravity. You have Einstein proved that you could walk, like if you went in any direction, that space is curved. And of course in 1921, finally did it with experiments in Australia. They saw that light curved. It was anyway, working with the sunlight during an eclipse. So it goes around the universe and it comes back to the same place. Point being that he proved gravity, and that light itself moved with gravity. These are such extraordinary thoughts before 1921. I mean, in the physical world, in the same way this aerogel is still, if you tell most people, I mean, very few people are aware of it, but it's so amazing. I mean, every day in this world, there are new materials discovered. You think of quartz and gold and this, and then the elemental table and the noble, whatever. It's these things are discovered by scientists, by material scientists every day, brand new ones. Why does a spoon not stick to your, it has to be a certain material or a certain covering on it, on anything and everything in the world. The reason you get those little cuts from magazines you used to have, remember reading? And so they'd have to put certain materials on the dollar bill. It has to be made. Anyway, it's all, there's a lot of chemistry involved, okay? And a lot of material scientists to make all these things work. The new materials in the world, in our little devices and so on. But again, extrapolate it out to your spiritual experience. You're going to have all these different dimensions, all these delicate little areas of your consciousness that are so wonderful. Talk to the most spiritual person you know quietly and listen to them. No one ever listens to a spiritual person. They can't. Unless they're spiritual. So I run into Carlos and I'm saying to him, because he's spiritual, so it's there. I see Annette, and she's just quiet as a church mouse, but prettier than a model. And so it's wonderful to know people like that. And you don't have to say a word ever, but you're at peace, you're calm, somebody understands you. It's like a family member in the middle of a really rough little bar. It's sweet, because the world is basically Carlos's favorite term is Satan's casino. There's all these forces of temptation, these beings. My buddy Rob on the way in here, and somebody at the post office wanted to start a fight. It was so funny. And then I looked at him and Satan. It was like just before this class, and I'm in a God state before I do this or before I do anything. I'll be very honest, and I'm speaking for all spiritual people in the world. I don't like to talk about myself in this, but this is the way it is. I say my buddy Baba Bedi in India, this is one of hundreds of methods I've met. I mean, I've discovered and added to my repertoire of abilities to help people that have something wrong with them, because that's what all you want to do is help. When you're a lumen, there's nothing but needing to fix this thing. It's horrible and it need not be. And every person's pain is your pain. And you don't let on to it. You feel this, you're aware of it, and you're aware you can't react right then. There's a way of dealing things, and you separate yourself, material scientists, but think it in spirituality. So I can separate myself from my divine experience of God that's always there and become like everyone else instantly without a thought, and then deal with that person's problem where it is without reacting to it and doing whatever is necessary. And you can kind of almost play act and all this. You have to work your way into the circumstance. And there are all these different dimensions and qualities to it that are so magnificent. And imagine how lonely you're going to be, because you already are. And even a love relationship won't help you, because you have to protect that person, and things will be at both of you. And here's where it gets good. When you're in that illumined space, there's no time or place or distance. Money doesn't exist. There's no need or want or desire. And you're living in a timeless condition where God has orchestrated every millisecond of your thought process, of your life, an accident, a graduation. It's all dealt with. Every time I've told my buddy yesterday, every time I've ever picked up a book in my life and opened and looked at it, which is every day a lot, every word, every sentence I ever saw was exactly right for that moment. That's never not happened. Every street sign I see, whatever, it's always there. And the point is, you can break up into all these conditions and they're all divine. You're all divine. And when you learn to not react to want or need or desire, then the magic begins. You'll always be ready. You'll always be here. You'll be more alone than you can imagine. But when you're here, think of my friend Teresa that I loved many, many years ago, my buddy, just a friend in your heart forever. And I couldn't explain why I couldn't be there. I tried to make it, I knew I had a destiny. I didn't even have the words for it. It was a feeling, so I just fortunately, things happened that separated, and then I feel her, but in this timeless state, we have perfect communication, as I have with 1,000 other people, or every great teacher or writer I've read. They're my friends now. And God orchestrates all this, so there's no separation, there's no loss, there's no want, there's no need. Whatever happened previous is dealt with. It's, I mentioned, like on the way up the mountain, the mountain you climb to get there is like, you're already there, but you insist on your own, that you make up for everything, even if you just looked wrong. You don't want to hurt anyone. You'll fix it inside yourself. It's much more than being perfect. Like you've worked on every little aspect of consciousness, of awareness, of life and death and in between, and you clean up everything. It's a wonderful place. And so people like my buddy here, like the world will disappear in around us, because we're not afraid of anyone or anything, including ourselves, if you can understand that. When you let go of lust or need, or all my buddies that talk about girls, I'm like, it's like, I am so sensitive, I am not even here, so I have no desire. I have no spiritual desire. I'm speaking for all of us who are spiritual. We know what I'm saying. It's like just this whole thing is it's a setup, but you're living in another plane of experience. You're like that stardust that can't even be seen that's lifted by the aerogel, and the aerogel is your faith in God. You're lighter than air. You're made of light. You are a divine being, a holy presence, a holy personage. You cannot die. You'll expand to the living light when you work with these different dimensions, and you'll have 100% of them done within 2 years, 5 years, and you're going to love it. When you discover the one that you didn't see, sometimes you'll be, oh, but it'll always be wrapped in awe when this other door opens. Because this is what happens when you are spiritual and you have nothing to do with the world system. So all my real friends aren't here, and they don't even know what this is. And they're made of something more spectacular and wonderful, kinder, more profoundly brilliant than stardust. And if anything, we're made of stardust. Holy stars, divine, golden. Diamond hard, pure and wondrous. These are the edges of your spiritual consciousness, what you get to when you're alone. You separate from the people around you, and you let go and let God. But these experiences are so delicate, and that's why you can't discuss it with people. We can feel it if you're one of Annette's pets. You're just there with Mama, and you can climb all over, and she's just there until you mature. She's not going to move because she's a Buddha. And people near her don't always understand it because she doesn't, I know I have the same things as spiritual. I do not want to change. I do not tell someone to fix themselves. When they fix themselves, it's okay with me. And if they're not on that path, then they're in trouble around me. And it might take a month, a year, 12 years, 5 seconds. And I don't say in trouble like it's, you can't throw yourself against a brick wall all day and you don't win anything. So when you toughen up, remember it's our neighborhood we're protecting. Your family, your Teresa, your loved ones. Think of the past pets you've had or friends that you miss, and just, they're here right now. A buddy of mine died the other day, and a buddy was bragging about it because he's my buddy Rink, and I think, no, don't, right now. My buddy was famous, but it was like very, he's just a quiet, humble, decent person, but because he was big, tough, famous for that, it was, you know, all these stories, and no, it's just, I just want to cry. When I'm just, and I mean a delicate, like, just an appreciation for his life. And he doesn't want that from anyone. Doesn't need it, doesn't care. Doesn't want adulation from anyone for anything. So when he passed, it was just, you just got to, oh, good for him. And not even that, no thought. It's just, I just instantly felt his heart. And just acknowledge each other without any more to it. No need, no want, no desire, no, you know. If I was around people that knew him more directly, then I would be instrumentally there for them in some way, but he's one of us. What they call, the Buddhists called thus gone, the Tathagata, those who are thus gone. They have disappeared back into the light itself, the light that you are, that we are. And if enough of us comprehend this in the very near future, there won't be a very near or a future, or an us. Only this openness, sound as the ocean floor. It's pure as you. And then all that your mother lived for. She lived for you and gave her life for you, more than people know. You have to be very deep to truly see it. Some moms might be in trouble with life or this or that, and you don't really get their desire inside. You see what I'm saying? But they lived for you. And imagine being in this illumined state where you can fix all of what she went through. You can go before there, now. And this one lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky. It's, or as the Buddha said, think of this life as a bubble in a stream. Because you can see all your lives, everyone's lives. You can see all the universes. There are many beautiful universes that are all spiritual, except for this madness. There are a couple incidental that are related to this world system. And like since I was 18, I always saw that 24 hours a day and knew it. And I knew it had to end and it would end. And I'm expressing this for you with you today, and very contritely and humbly, like it's not a big deal. We're going to do that. It's okay. I'm simply communicating with all of us know in our heart, this can't go on. Can it? You're made of starlight. You will fulfill your spiritual destiny. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a healer, a teacher, a divine warrior. And the gifts are very, 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 very powerful. They go beyond the whole world. An army can come at you, it will mean nothing. And if you're in this condition, you will see what was just said. You'll be endlessly more invisible than invisibility. And then that will be a stepping stone into these nicer places, these sweeter times, these more God Himself will live in your heart forever. God Himself lives in your heart forever now. And this is not a religious sentiment, this is an experience that all who are spiritual maintain within them. And very few spiritual people, because they're very contrite, they're not going to change you, they're going to wait for that moment, will express it. So quietly seek out a spiritual friend and ask, knock. We're made of spiritual starlight. That's why you separate from the world. You have a marriage, you married somebody, you separate from all your friends and family. It's sanctified. You are batteries for each other and protect one another from the world. And you never go outside of that. You make a safe place for your child. The guy lays back watching TV all day, not because he's lazy, but because he's conserving energy and ready to pounce on anyone that comes to the doors with any bad intent. And so my buddy Greg teaches all the time, bad intent. He's the nicest guy in the world. He's a choir boy. And he's won hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fights in karate, world champion. And when he teaches people, even though he's so nice and sweet, he says at that moment where you have to protect, you jump up and you use bad intent. But he's not saying anger and hate. It's like bad intent. You just have to make that stand, that moment, and then the fight's over. And in the beginning, you'll have a lot of self-respect when you actually confront the actual devil himself. I remember the first time he completely manifested in front of me in 1978. I was in a building in San Mateo, and I was like it was so impressive, the actual thing behind. There's an actual person, the devil. It's like so impressive. There was a piano, he was handsome. It was like, it was vision, and it was a guy, it was a famous clairvoyant. I was around at the time, and it was like very impressive. And I don't think, but it's the real devil. And at a certain moment, I'm like, because that's what the dark side does, is it impresses you. It's interesting. But then once he got through it, I looked at him in the eye and I knew, without saying to him, because I wasn't tempted, it was like, you just ran into the wrong Marine. And I know he was done. But it's very, very, very endlessly delicate, interesting, subtle, to confront all the different energies. And you see the way different people around you are attracted to it in different ways or live it out in relationships. And so I spent a couple years alone until everything in my life, including the material life, was perfect. Unfortunately, whatever God did with money and all, my work, it all worked out where I got to get every detail of my life perfectly. And then I let go of all the physical stuff since then, because there's so much interest in the spiritual. And it's a wonderful ride to sit quietly, to carry every prostitute across the rapids and leave her on the other side, and she'll be changed. Not that she's right, wrong, up, down, in, out. The point is, we don't recognize evil because we're not here. Everything around you will open up like 1,000 starscapes, literally. Your life will change. More than that, your need to change all others, to heal every hurt, every pain in the whole world. As long as a kitten can fall off a chair, hurt or not hurt, I will not stop. You will not stop. We will not stop. This is why you were born. To end all the madness. All the sin. The sin in the old scripture simply means separation. Separation from God. It doesn't mean sin. You get some idiot yelling on the stump on his pulpit of this and that. Like, oh my God, no, that's not the point. God doesn't need that. He doesn't need you. Sin is sin. You don't get rid of it by throwing a stick at someone. You disappear back into the light itself. You become the living light, the light living. Those that are thus gone, like my buddy Baba Bedi, who would simply hold a person's hand and they would see all their recent lifetimes. His wife was Frida Bedi. Their son was the most famous actor at the time. He was in a movie, a James Bond movie, a very big, handsome, tall young man. And so he would hold their hands, these people from all, they would hear about him because all of our friends, from Indira Gandhi to all the Dalai Lama and all the great gurus that my buddy knew over for 30 years in India, they were around there. And so Bob was in the middle of it. He was the true saint, and everyone else was being famous or writing a book or having their ashram, and he was just a sweet old guy. He ate what he wanted, drank, did whatever he wanted to do. And he was got very heavy. He and his wife were, they were in prison for backing up Gandhi and so forth. So his health wasn't good, but his soul was beyond good. So he just worked with children and education, and but people knew about his gifts. They would come in, but he didn't make like it was anything. So you'd hold your hand and you'd feel all your recent lifetimes, or just a divine being. Like with the monks and the lamas that were real, you walked in there and you felt God. They didn't have the time or the place or the circumstance to express it in the way I'm expressing it today. But what I'm expressing today is what they expressed then, and they're here now. I'm there then. And there's nothing out of place. You came here for a reason. Look at how remarkable, wonderful, what a divine blessing you are to the whole world. You are God's gift to this generation. That there be time no longer. There was a sense of time. You'll be in this timeless place. My mom, I could kill myself for not being more conscious of her growing up, and yet she had to do it for 6 kids, and my friend Teresa, or whoever. I go on and on. My teacher Kathleen, who taught me humility, even though I was enlightened. Can I just say that, please? But it's one of the many, many gifts of trying to understand this whole world and how it can be. My friend Maverick, who's the most damaged dog ever, and then 12 years old, met Annette, pulled out of a horrible circumstance, a violent circumstance, and brought him home. And within 2 years, Maverick was healed and was the great, great, great world champion dog that it was supposed to be. And she handled it with just pure love. It's the most amazing transformation and healing I've ever seen. And because our heart speaks. No one can touch you. And early on, you'll be attacked in every different area and angle, and you are going to love it. Like I loved when the devil completely manifests. I was going, yeah, bring it on. I mean, but I had to study and read and be around people and have all kinds of crazy circumstances. People claiming you did this or that. You're like, okay, and you just ride through it, and you ride through it like the rapids. And it's wonderful to finally gather the fact that God actually is God, that you're here for a reason, and it's to transfer all this spiritual purity and desire in your heart to the world in general around about you, and that you have the power to do that without any interference. Meaning anything comes up, you'll be happy, oh, now I'll tweak it, I'll tweak it. Carlos is a mason, so he fixes things. He fixed my place when I had to move, and you come in the next day and everything is exactly ordered. Every painting, everything is centered the right way through the whole house, even though he's supposed to be doing construction. He's a mason, so he can do anything in an ordered way. We talked about feng shui. My friend that wrote the books about it and all, because she understood that there's a flow, so she could just intuitively change this or that in your life and in your environment, and everything would flow. I guess, continue another minute? Yes. So the idea with that is there's a feng shui within you with all these different expressions of God, these different spiritual dimensions within you. You can order them and work with them, and then get it like you're getting that aerogels in there to buffer it, where like I can be out in a public place and something can be very rough, and I deal with it just like on the way in with someone very rough, and it was to get me off, and like, but I didn't go off. I would like to jump over there and do whatever a guy does, but I didn't, and it was for a hairline. Didn't even want to do it, no, but a second afterwards I thought about it. But normally you don't even go there, you just deal with it. And you're in these other places. I don't have words for it. It's like there are oceans of presence, but they're lighter than air. It's like Einstein, all the weight of the gravity around all the universe and all the constellations and star systems, and he figured that if you went on a ray of light, if you started walking this way on any ray of light, you will always come back to the place that you left, because of the curvature of space, because of gravity, which was, and he just thought through it, because Einstein was, if you look into that beautiful man's life, he was a mystic. And his desires had nothing to do with science, actually, and I'm not going to go into it, but I personally understand certain things. And they were all of a mystical, spiritual nature, to prove the absolute existence and predominance of God's goodness above all else, despite the horrors of the world. And he did it in his way. We're doing it in our way. And you are the way. You are the truth. You are the light. You are God's gift again to this generation, that it be the last, that there be time no longer, that the mystery of God should be finished. That's the 10th chapter in Revelation. If you read that, it's all true, but so much you have to put it aside and look at the time, the place, the language, but and how the church might have changed it in the year 200 and different. That there are so many different ways of looking at this. And when you get very quiet, you'll see through everything. And you will be a holy person. But a holy person is like my buddy Baba, was like he was just a guy. He wouldn't know that. Or his wife, I never knew it until afterwards that she was so enlightened, because I was around people who were clearly illumined lamas and so forth. And she was just always busy, like the house mother, fixing things and taking care of things and getting on a bus or a bicycle to keep things going. So she was everyone's mother. She was the mother of these holy men. These were not, whatever you see on a movie of the holy men, just sitting there quiet. They're very, 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 very powerful beings. They're men, they're women, they're ladies, they're gentlemen, they're childlike. They see everything. And they never make a stand. They're never here. You are the living light. Those that are thus gone, the Tathagata, the illumined, who've turned back into the light itself. It's beyond nirvana. It's a God consciousness. There are different names for it in the Sanskrit and so on. And it's simply love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy mind and all thy soul. And again, it's not the like bawling from the pulpit that God, it's love the Lord thy God with all your heart and all your mind and all your spirit. Or that God is love. It isn't that God is love. We love. It's a state of love, like agape, like 16 words in Latin for it. It's a state of awareness that's beyond purity. It's beyond any sense of God. And that's the first step, like these aerogels that protect us from the world. Then you can, like, it's a little collapsible and nothing in the world can touch you at a point. And that's why you hear like Joan of Arc being burnt to the stake, and still you know, people have self-immolated in Tibet and over the recent years for their reasons, and it's simply to make a statement because they're non-violent, but they're saying this can't go on, the horrors, somebody understand, and so they go up in flames, and it's that's an extreme condition, but you don't wish to hurt anyone, it's not in you. And justice is justice, but you're not living in this world, so you understand the only justice is to be where I can be with Teresa now, my mom, or 70,000 other people I've known, right here. And at this point, I can heal all of them. I can talk to them individually, be with them, and whatever circumstance gets taken care of. Isn't that wonderful? So illumination is a lot more involved than just, oh, he's a happy person, he's close to God, he's spiritual. No, it's the consciousness is imbued with many, many dimensions of gifts and powers or presences. The powers, they say powers, it's gifts and powers. It's they call them cities, S-I-D-D-I, whatever they call it, in the Sanskrit. But it's not, the powers are not the powers you do, like think it's something over something else, or witchcraft or good witchcraft. No, it's a pure state. It's a pure you, because it's a pure God. And you are God's, you're God's light, literally. Imagine that. I mean, I have that beaten into me all my life, but I'm so humble inside, so I can't accept it, but it's there, but I can't ever say it. I can't believe you just said it right there. But the point is, every spiritual person feels this, so it makes you, the further and the more powerful and the more wise you become, the less you are. And the less you are, the more wonderful he is. There's a time appointed. There's a person appointed by God. And we're not separate from each other. You are that person. This is that time. If you're spiritual, you don't feel separate from anyone. My buddy Carlos, we're just like the same person. You can't explain it to anyone else. He's living a young, powerful guy's life, and I'm way over the other side. And I'm like, but it's just inside. You read it like it just is. You look at Annette, you don't feel that because you look right through her because she's not there. The light living, the living light. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.